I am 95 years old. I am a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, and I need to tell you something about your parents that you are not going to want to hear. Not because it is comfortable, not because it'll make you feel good, because you are running out of time to hear it. And they're running out of time to be understood, and I am old enough now that the truth doesn't scare me anymore. So I am just going to say it. Your parents did the best they could, and their best wasn't always good enough. Both of those things are true at the same time. And until you can hold both in your hands without dropping one, you will never be free. That is what parenting is, holding something fragile in rough hands. And sometimes the hands are too tight, and sometimes they're too loose, and you never find out which until years later when the damage is already done. If you are carrying anger toward your mother or your father, if there is a phone call you keep putting off, if holidays feel like performances and visits feel like obligations, if you love your parents, but you don't like being around them, this is for you. I am not here to defend your parents, and I am not here to defend you. I am here to tell you what I see from 95, because from up here the view is different, and what I see might change everything. At 95, you see things you couldn't see at 40. You see the whole shape of a life instead of just the moments that hurt. And from up here, the picture looks very different than it did when I was in the middle of it. Every family has an album like this, and every person who opens it remembers a different version of the same story. Your parents have their version. You have yours. Both are real. Neither is complete. I was not a perfect mother. I need you to hear that from me first. I raised 3 children. I fed them. I kept them clean. I showed up at their schools. I stayed married to their father. And I thought that was enough. It wasn't because I also yelled when I was tired. I compared my children to each other in ways that drew blood. I told my son David he was too sensitive, and my daughter Margaret that she was too loud. I made my youngest, Catherine, feel invisible because by the time she came along, I was already exhausted from the first 2, and every one of those words landed. They landed in my children's bodies and stayed there for decades. David became a man who apologized for having feelings. Margaret spent her 20s trying to be quieter, and Catherine married the first person who made her feel seen because she'd never felt it at home. My children loved me while I was hurting them. That is the thing nobody talks about. Children don't stop loving you when you fail. They just learn to love with a flinch. And that flinch follows them into every relationship they ever have. I did that me. Not a monster. A mother who loved her children more than breathing, and still hurt them, still left marks because love without awareness is just force in a gentle voice. And I didn't do any of it because I was cruel. I did it because I was 26 years old with 3 children, under 5 and a husband, who worked nights and a mother in law who told me every week that I was doing it wrong. I did it because I was drowning, and nobody teaches you how to parent while you are drowning. They just hand you another child and say good luck. That is what I need you to understand about your parents. They weren't operating from some calm, considered place. They were surviving, and survival doesn't leave room for perfection. Your mother didn't read the parenting books because she was too tired to read anything by 9 o'clock. Your father didn't know how to say, I love you, because his father said it with a paycheck and a handshake. They improvised, every single day, with whatever tools they had. And some of those tools were broken before they ever picked them up. That doesn't erase the damage, but it explains the hands that caused it. But here is what nobody tells you, and this is the part that might sting. Understanding why your parents hurt you doesn't mean it didn't hurt. Those two things are not opposites. They're neighbors. They live in the same house. Your mother's anxiety wasn't your fault, but it shaped you. Your father's silence wasn't about you, but it wounded you. Their marriage falling apart had nothing to do with you, but you carried it in your shoulders, in your stomach. In every relationship you've had since, you are allowed to say, they did their best and it still hurt me. You are allowed to hold compassion and pain in the same hand. And anyone who tells you to choose one or the other is asking you to lie about your own life. Both stones are real, the rough one and the smooth one. You don't have to choose which one to keep. You just have to open your hand wide enough to hold them both. Now here's where I need your attention most, because this is the thing I came here to say. Your parents are getting older right now, today. While you are watching this, while you are still angry about the birthday they forgot in 1987, or the recital they missed, or the thing they said at Thanksgiving that you've replayed 1,000 times. They're getting older, their hands are shaking, their world is getting smaller, and one morning, not far from now, you are going to get a phone call, and the person on the other end is going to tell you something you can't undo, and every conversation you didn't have, every visit you postponed, every, I'll call them next week, that turned into next month, that turned into next year, is going to land on your chest like a stone you'll carry for the rest of your life. I know this because my daughter Catherine didn't speak to me for 4 years. 4 years over something I said at her wedding, something careless and hurtful that I don't even remember saying. But she remembered every word. She didn't throw the photo away, she put it face down. And that tells you everything about what silence does. It doesn't destroy love. It just flips it over and buries it under other things until you forget it is there. And she had every right to be angry. Every right. I am not here to tell you your anger is wrong. Your anger might be the most honest thing about you. But I am here to tell you what happens when you let anger drive the car. Those 4 years Catherine didn't speak to me. I had a mild heart attack. I moved apartments. I fell in the bathroom and couldn't get up for 40 minutes. And she didn't know because we weren't talking. And I didn't call her because I was too proud. And she didn't call me because she was too hurt. Pride on my end, pain on hers. And 4 years fell through the gap between them. Catherine came back, not because I earned it, because David got sick, cancer. And when someone you love gets sick, the architecture of your anger collapses overnight. She drove 3 hours to the hospital and walked into the waiting room and looked at me. And I looked at her, and neither of us said sorry. We just held on to each other and wept. That waiting room, plastic chairs and fluorescent lights and stale coffee. The ugliest place I've ever been, and the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me happened there. My daughter came back. David died 14 months later. He was 61. And in those 14 months, Catherine and I sat beside his bed together. We cooked meals together. We argued about medication dosages and drove each other crazy in the ICU waiting room. And somewhere in all that mess and grief, we found each other again, not the polished version, the real one, the one that is scared and selfish and flawed and trying. But it took David getting sick for us to get there, and that is what I can't forgive myself for. Not that we fought, that we wasted 4 years waiting for a tragedy to give us permission to love each other again. 4 years. That is how much wax burned away while we sat in our separate houses, refusing to be the first one to call. 4 years I'll never get back, and neither will she. Don't do what we did. Don't wait for the hospital waiting room. Don't wait for the diagnosis. Don't wait for the funeral to realize you should have picked up the phone on an ordinary Tuesday when the sun was out and nobody was dying. Don't let a hospital be your meeting place. Don't let grief be the thing that brings you back together. You have today right now, and today doesn't require a crisis. It just requires courage. So here is what I'd tell you from 95, from the other side of all of it. Call your parents, not when you are ready, not when the anger has fully dissolved, not when you've processed everything in therapy and feel completely healed. Now, while they can still answer, you don't have to forgive them to call them. You don't have to pretend everything is fine. You can call and say, I am still working through some things, but I wanted to hear your voice. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. It is the simplest thing in the world. Pick up the phone dial. Wait for the voice you've known your entire life, and let it wash over you like warm water, even if it hurts, especially if it hurts. And on the other end, your mother is pressing her hand to her mouth, trying not to cry, because she has been waiting every single day. She has been waiting for your voice to come through that phone, because here is what your parents will never tell you. They know they weren't perfect. They know about the yelling. They know about the favoritism. They know about the time they were too tired to show up or too angry to be kind. They know. And most of them are carrying a guilt so heavy, it is wearing out their knees faster than age. Your mother isn't sleeping well, not because of her hip, because she is replaying 1984 in her head. Your father is quiet at dinner, not because he has nothing to say, because he is trying to figure out how to say sorry for something that happened 30 years ago without making it worse. They rehearse apologies in the shower. They write letters they never send. They watch you with your children and see every mistake they made and feel the distance like a knife between their ribs. And they say nothing, because they're terrified that bringing it up will push you further away. They're waiting for you the way I waited for Catherine, not with words, with silence, hoping you'll come back, terrified that you won't. I kept that chair ready for 4 years. Every evening I'd sit on my porch and look at the empty one beside me, and I'd think, tomorrow, maybe tomorrow she'll come. That is what waiting does to a parent. It turns every sunset into a prayer. I am not asking you to erase what happened. I am asking you to make room for it. Room for the hurt and the love. Room for the anger and the understanding. Room for the truth that your parents were whole people before they were your parents. People with their own wounds and their own parents who failed them and their own shame. They never figured out how to put down. You are not betraying yourself by loving them. You are not excusing their mistakes by calling. You are not weak for wanting your mother's voice on a Sunday morning, even though she hurt you when you were 12. You are human, and humans need their parents, even at 50, even at 60, even when the parents are imperfect and the love is complicated and the history has sharp edges. Every generation writes their name in the same book, and every generation makes new mistakes with the same love. That is not failure, that is family. Imperfect, people trying to love each other across time. If this touched something in you, share it, not for me, for the parent who is sitting in a quiet house right now hoping the phone will ring, and for the child who is holding a phone wondering if they're brave enough to dial. Tell me in the comments, when was the last time you called your parents just to hear their voice? Or if they're gone, what do you wish you'd said? I read every single one, and I carry them with me. Write it down if you can't say it yet. Write it in a journal nobody will read. Get the words out of your body and onto paper. Because the things we don't say don't disappear. They just find uglier ways to come out. Your parents were not the parents you deserved, and they loved you more than you will ever know. Both things, same people at the same time. That is not a contradiction. That is just what being a family means. Look at those marks on the doorframe. Every one of them is proof that someone was paying attention, someone cared enough to measure, and the hand that held the pencil was imperfect, and the love behind it was real. Now pick up the phone before the table gets set without you.